Welcome to Jets Overtime, presented by Duncan. I'm Eric Allen, inside the BetMGM studio, joined as always by Eric Coleman. In just a second, we'll also bring in Anthony Beck. Eric, the Jets just played a wild and wacky ball game at MetLife Stadium. Had their chances in the fourth quarter, but unfortunately, they fall to the Denver Broncos by a 37-28 score.
Yeah, I mean, it was a wild and wacky game for the Jets. You know, they start off, have a great start with Sam Darnold's fantastic run. You know, he's scrambling, he's shaking linebackers in the middle of the field and runs for 46 yards. And it was a great start for the Jets. But, you know, fortunately after that, you know, the penalties, 11 penalties, 6 personal fouls. I mean, as you see Sam, you know, with the agility and show his athleticism. He led the team in rushing today. I thought he did a great job of scrambling around. He was sacked 6 times, so that's, far more than the Jets would like them to. But, overall, it was a very frustrating game for Jets fans, and I'm sure it was for the team as well.
Anthony, for the first time in franchise history, the New York Jets have started 0-4 in consecutive seasons. The team had its chances in the fourth quarter. They came back. They were trailing 27-16. Then they tallied 12 consecutive points. They had a lead at 28-27. The Broncos came back. We thought it was going to be a back-and-forth affair from there, but the Jets never scored again.
Defense had to find a way to get the ball away from the Broncos and even score if they could in this football game, which they did. There were some ups and downs in this game. The thing that's most disappointing to me is the fact that, the penalties that Eric was talking about, the personal fouls, a lot of these things happened on third down and just, completely kills the momentum or anything you're trying to do from a standpoint of getting off the field. And it just gave, that young quarterback some more opportunities to get comfortable in what he was doing. I give the kid credit. He did a decent job early in the football game, but finally you knew at some point the defense was going to affect the young quarterback, and it did. They were able to get those takeaways, but when you get the takeaways, the Jets weren't able to capitalize on scoring touchdowns. It was field goals. They weren't able to get anything in the end zone, and to me, that's the tail of the tape right there for this team, because if you don't get a red zone and you don't score touchdowns, it's hard to win in the NFL, and you've got to capitalize on great field position.
Eric, Denver Broncos 2 of 4 inside the red zone. The New York Jets 0 of 3 inside the red zone. This has consistently been a problem for this team. And then you look at third down. The Broncos were 6 of 12 on third down. The Jets, not too bad, 8 of 19. I think that's about 42%. But the penalties, guys, 11 penalties for over 115 yards marked off. You're not going to win ball games like that, Eric.
No, you're not. I mean, going into the red zone, you have to leave the red zone with points and preferably touchdowns. And it didn't really seem like the Jets were ever a threat to score touchdowns once getting into the red zone. Then you look at the defensive side of the ball. You have a young quarterback in his first start in the NFL, and you allow him 50%. I don't think they sacked the quarterback once, and it was very disappointing. He seemed very comfortable back there in the pocket. They were extended drives because of the personal foul penalties, and he was throwing the ball deep at will to a certain side of the field, and it was just at a certain point, the players have to look at themselves in the eye and say, listen, we have to stop beating ourselves. This isn't a coaching situation. This is a player situation, and you have to play with some discipline.
Anthony, we're going to have a deep dive here on Sam Darnold in just a few moments, but under duress a lot tonight. We talked about how were the Jets going to make life uncomfortable for Brett Rippon, and then what happens was Sam Darnold was sacked 6 times, 10 quarterback hits, and he had to exit this ball game for a little bit in the second quarter after he sprained his right shoulder.
Yeah, 2 of those sacks that he took were on him, where he has to get rid of the football, see the open receiver, release it. Especially, they showed that replay multiple times when he got that sack and hurt his shoulder, that he had Cager over the middle. It was a very similar route that he had ran last week, where he got those 17, 18-yard catches over the middle of the field. For some reason, Sam didn't like what he saw. You couldn't really see who the defenders were. Maybe there was a hand in his face and he wasn't able to feel like he could complete that ball. But again, I was a little nervous at that point when Sam went out. But again, you can't question his toughness comes right back in the game. Heck, he came back in on the third down, didn't even wait to the series ended to get back on the football field. But protection is an issue. Listen, Udoka goes down early. Then you bring in Becton. He clearly wasn't healthy to come into this game. He re-injures himself slightly. He comes out, and then you're counting on guys. I believe Fant came out of the game at some point as well. So yeah, so I mean, listen, man, it is just it's hard to fathom the injury plague right now this football team is at. I mean, player after player going down. You can't get consistency when you got something groove and then you feel good about what you're doing. All of a sudden, somebody goes down. The bright spot for me is the guys that actually came back. Crowder, what a game he had. We knew he was going to be special. He was really good in the short range game, getting some crossing routes, doing some things. And I'll tell you, I'm a big fan of Jeff Smith right now and his ability. He just showed a maturity on the field that he looked like he'd been doing it for a while, and it really showed in this game.
Yeah, Jamison Crowder goes over 100 yards for the second consecutive game. Of course, he did it in Buffalo, reaching the century mark, and then missed the last 2 weeks. Sam Darnold's go-to receiver back in the lineup tonight. We're going to talk about Jeff Smith later, but let's go back to MetLife Stadium right now and hear from Jets head coach Adam Gase from the virtual podium.
This sprained shoulder on Sam, do you have a long-term prognosis?
No, I don't know. I don't know anything after. I mean, he came back in. He said, I'm good to go. So I'm sure I'll find out either more tonight or tomorrow morning.
Adam, what happened defensively tonight? You didn't get to rip in once.
Yeah, I mean, we had multiple chances to get off the field. We hurt ourselves. I mean, the penalties were just they're brutal. I mean, it's just made him punt one time. We couldn't do the right stuff. I mean, when we did hit them, we're hitting them too late, and we're getting personal fouls, and it's just ridiculous.
Did Becton pull himself out of the game, or was that a decision by somebody else?
No, he went as long as he could, and he just said he didn't have anything left. He didn't have the strength he wanted or that he needed.
Adam, can you go over the decision you guys made to punt on the 4th and 1 down in the red zone, and if you gave any consideration to going for it instead of kicking the field?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I thought about it, and it just, quarterback sneak there was on my mind, but I'm going, he's got the bad shoulder. We got a chance to take the lead. Hoping for a stop.
That was Adam Gase at MetLife Stadium. Hey, Eric, what did you think about that decision? The Jets trailing by 2 points, 4th and 1, 4th and a half a yard. Vic Fangio challenged. It looked like the Jets indeed had a first down, but Jamison Crowder was ruled about a half yard short after the replay. So you have a decision to make there, and the Jets opted to bring out Sam Fick and go for the lead.
Listen, I don't fault Adam Gase for that decision. They were down 2 points. They had an opportunity to take the lead in a football game where you have a young quarterback. You don't know if he is going to be able to beat your defense and come score again. So, listen, I don't fault him for that. Putting points on the board, taking the lead in the fourth quarter, I thought it was a great decision. He also mentioned that Sam Darnold, has a sore shoulder. You don't want those defensive tackles getting extra shots on him, landing on him. That's the way you protect your quarterback. I thought it was a smart decision to go up 1 point in the fourth quarter.
So, Anthony, the Jets actually take the lead there at 28-27. We talk about the 12 unanswered points. Then, here's a key moment in the ball game where the Broncos have the ball. It's a 3rd and 6 at their 29-yard line. Brett Rippon is sacked by Quinnen Williams for a 10-yard loss. But symbolic of the night, Quinnen Williams penalized for a face mask, and that kept the drive going.
It's tragic. I mean, listen, when you get personal fouls or, roughing the passer, or whatever that may be, anything that's over 10 yards of a penalty, that comes with technique and understanding, what you're doing, how you're doing it, and doing it properly. You don't coach grabbing face masks. You don't coach, hitting a quarterback and landing on it. The rules are in place that are there. So listen, you chalk it up. I mean, you got to learn from it, but again, it can't happen as well. It was disappointing across the board to see those kind of penalties happen in the game. I understand that, from a coordinator standpoint and what Greg Williams is trying to do, everything is very aggressive, and he wants to inflict pain. He wants to come at you hard, but you also, again, you can do all those things without getting those penalties. And he's not telling guys to get penalties, but the guys can control those actions by still doing the right thing and getting off the field in that situation. You're right. And just to go back to that fourth down, I think, first of all, I didn't think there was enough information from that side angle. Aikman kept talking about in the game that, he's looking at that yellow line and it's well short. Well, we all know that yellow line doesn't mean that's the first down. That's just, that's put there by the computer system. But when you looked at it from the side view, it just looked like from where that orange flag was on the stick all the way across, that the ball was kind of right there. And it just didn't give you enough information for me to really move that football. So I questioned that call there in the football game. But to kick the field goal, take the lead, absolutely no question. Your defense has momentum. You picked off the quarterback twice. I mean, to me, Rippon was ripe to be taken down, and they were. I mean, again, they got the opportunity in third down to get the sack, and they got it. It worked out exactly how you wanted it, but you weren't able to do it without a penalty. And that was just one of the factors, obviously, Eric, in this game.
Eric, Anthony talked about the tackle rotation. It felt like every offensive lineman took a snap at tackle tonight, unfortunately, for the green and white. But again, dealing with injuries at the cornerback position, because Bless Austin exited this game early and was replaced by an undrafted free agent in Lamar Jackson. Pierre Desir, up and down tonight, gave up a couple touchdown passes, had 2 interceptions. The Jets, 3 interceptions of Brett Rippon. He had 2 touchdown passes, so kind of a mixed bag in the defensive backfield, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, it was a mixed bag, and it was 2 great interceptions by Pierre Desir. But unfortunately, he was the victim to a couple of deep passes, and it seemed like they were picking on him all night. You look over at Lamar Jackson on the deep ball with Patrick on the sideline on that cover 2. He's got to get his hands on that number 1 receiver to slow him down. They're playing cover 2 coverage. Marcus May is in the deep half, and he has 2 vertical routes. You have to take something off a receiver to give Marcus a chance to react to the quarterback. So, overall, I think this is a learning lesson for the defensive backs. There were some great plays. There were some plays that I thought that they should have made. And there were some plays where they didn't compete. I thought the first touchdown to Jerry Jeudy, Pierre had a great opportunity to catch that ball, and he didn't high point it. He didn't, just like the way you're coached to do it. If he does that, he knocks it down or ends up with the 3rd interception. So, there's a lot of things on tape. I hope they all learn from it and, continue to grow.
So speaking of Pierre Desir, our own Olivia Landis caught up with the Jets cornerback after the game.
Olivia Landis now joined by cornerback Pierre Desir. Pierre, a tough loss tonight marks an 0-4 start to the season. Overall, what were your initial takeaways in today's loss against the Denver Broncos?
We beat ourselves. We let this one slip away. From myself giving up big plays to costly penalties that added up and initially, cost us a game. So, we let this one slip away. But, no one's, hanging their head. We're still going to work. And our sole mission is just to get better and continue improving as a team. And then we move on into our Cardinals.
Something specific you mentioned were penalties, 11 penalties committed by the entire team for over 100+ yards. The defense specifically had 6 personal fouls. How do you go to work and change that in practice so that when it comes game time, those costly penalties are not there?
As a defense, you just have to be more alert. You can't play scared. Just got to be more alert. Make sure that your technique is clean, and know that the rest are going to be looking at those plays next coming weeks. So just got to clean up our technique and just play smart.
Pierre, you mentioned how you gave up a couple of big plays, but you also had 2 interceptions, one of them being a pick 6. What about your play do you think you could have improved, even though you had 2 very good plays that contributed to some of the points for the Jets?
You know, one of the plays for a touchdown against Judy. Just got to make that play. I read it. I knew exactly what they were going to do. Just got to come up with the ball. And the other one in the end zone, just had to put myself in better position. You know, it's it's one of those things that is bittersweet. You know, but I just got to continue to work, make sure I'm in my spot, my position, and you know, when my number's called, I got to make those plays.
What is the message now inside that locker room to turn the page and try and get that first win?
Message is to work and not beat ourselves. I mean, this game just showed it. We had it. We let it slip away, and we beat ourselves tonight.
Thanks, Pierre.
Thank you.
Watching Jets Overtime presented by Duncan, Eric Allen, and Eric Coleman inside the BetMGM studio. Eric, it's got to be so frustrating as a player what Pierre Desir just told our Olivia Landis. This team feels like they beat themselves.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, and it's hard enough on its own to get wins in the NFL. There's so much talent, and there's so many things that can go wrong. And to beat yourself and to self-inflicted wounds to be the cause of you losing a game is very frustrating. You know, you talk about the late hits, you talk about the personal fouls, you talk about the mistakes in coverage. All these things come back and they add up, they accumulate. You know, missed blocking assignments in the pass protection. These all add up. And if you continue to beat yourself, everyone keeps taking turns. We talked about it the last couple of weeks. If everyone takes a turn getting beat, then all of a sudden there's a lot of misplays out there. There's a bunch of mistakes, and that's how you end up getting beat. I think the team needs to look at themselves in the mirror and figure out how are we going to move forward. You know, this league is tough. You know, you're playing some tough opponents. Sometimes the guys are just better than you. But when you have that matchup that you think that you can win and that you did all your homework for, and you have the opportunity to come out on top, you cannot beat yourself. You have to give your team an opportunity and look out for the man next to you.
Anthony, the Darnold 46-yard scoring run was probably the most impressive run by a quarterback in franchise history. If you go back to 1960, it was the second longest run by a quarterback in franchise history. Can you just talk about the individual effort here?
You know, I briefly spoke about, you know, how the game plan should look and what Sam needed to do to be effective in this game. And I truly believe that his legs were a key factor in not only just, you know, making big plays, but taking some of the pressure off some of the things he's trying to force down the field and trying to make and create big plays instead of letting plays come to him. And that was a great opportunity early on that first series. I believe he had 2 third down opportunities where he ran and got the first down, QB sneak, and another run. And then, of course, that long run where he looked like he was trying to slide multiple times to end it, but yet nobody was around him to do that. He had great speed, great balance to get to the end zone. So I think later on as the game went on, I truly thought that I would see a little more of it because, you know, he was in a groove. Like usually quarterbacks aren't, you know, if they're running in a game, they feel some things, they see the openings, the seams. Even that last 4th and 3, when that came up, I really felt like that was an opportune time where maybe maybe he just doesn't stay on that read long enough and he sees that hole open up to the right and he starts to take it. Maybe he does that a little earlier just because he's had success. They weren't able to kind of contain him in the pocket when he was mobile. But again, you know, he kind of got out of that a little late. You know, Chubb was able to attack him and bring him down at that last play. But, you know, those are some of the things you have to add and implement into this offense because he is such a good athlete and he protects himself as a runner as well, which is important. So if you get those chances, you got to trust those opportunities. And when you see a seam, just hit it. And he's been known and obviously clearly can show that he can make big plays with his legs.
Oh, great point there. He converted 3 first downs on that first drive with his legs, culminating on that unbelievable 46-yard scoring run. But if you look at the statistics, Eric, this is not what you want. Your quarterback is your leading rusher with 84 yards. Frank Gore, 13 carries, 30 yards. LaMichael Pirine, the rookie out of Florida, 5 carries, 15 yards, so little traction from the other guys. Conversely, one of your key matchups, Eric, was what were the Jets going to do against Melvin Gordon? Well, by and large, I thought they were decent, but the dam broke late. 23 carries, 107 yards, including that 43-yarder that put the game away.
Yeah, I thought the Jets did a great job against the run and Melvin Gordon at the beginning of the game. You know, you as you break down at the end of the game where it's the 2-minute drill where they have to run the football, they let out that big run, the 43-yard touchdown, and that's very disappointing. But ultimately, that's been a big problem for this Jets defense, the big play. You can't give up 3 plays of 40 yards plus and expect to be competitive. You know, there's a missed technique issue. There's a misfit, a missed tackle on a long run here and there. You have to play sound defense, keep everything in front of you, make them earn every single yard, and especially with a young quarterback. And I'm sure that he will make mistakes as he did later in the game.
Sam Darnold finished 23 of 43 tonight for 230 yards, and he also had the career high 84 yards rushing in defeat. Let's go back to MetLife Stadium and hear from the Jets signal caller.
First of all, Sam, how's your shoulder feel?
Fine. You know, we'll take it day by day at this point, see what they say tomorrow.
Sam, were you worried that it was going to be something pretty severe when you hit the ground? I mean, can you just take us through what you felt in that moment and what kind of happened when you went back to the locker room?
I've had something similar, so I wasn't too worried. You know, once they told me they felt like I could go out there again, you know, that's when, you know, I started to get excited and, you know, obviously got back out there.
You stayed in for one play before signaling that you wanted to go off. Just what did you feel on that handoff? Was it just too much to keep going at that point?
Yeah, it was painful. I mean, that's basically it.
Are there any other questions for Sam?
Sam, how do you explain the inability to get the ball into the end zone in the red zone? And obviously, it's an issue you guys have been dealing with all year. But how frustrating is it in a game like this where you had several chances to win?
Yeah, it's unacceptable. Got to score when we get down there.
Sam, can you walk through what happened on that 46-yard touchdown run you had in the first quarter?
Yeah, I just, you know, saw an opening, took off, thought I was going to slide there for a second, obviously didn't. And, you know, I think the defense also thought I was going to slide too. So, yeah, it was you know, it was nice. You know, the receivers did a really good job blocking downfield once I escaped.
Sam, can
Get running for less at Dunkin' with a $1 medium hot coffee with the sandwich purchase. America runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary. Exclusions apply. Limited time offer. You are watching Jets Overtime presented by Dunkin'. Eric, no surprise here. Sam Darnold's really ticked off. You can see it in his face. You can hear it in his answers. He's in a bad place right now in terms of he's such a competitor. You can feel it coming out of him during these post-game news conferences.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold is the captain of the team. As he goes, the team will go. And, you know, you can tell this is a game that he really wanted. He was out there running the football. He was playing with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. And the fact that they beat themselves and missed those opportunities is extremely frustrating. You know, for he as a captain of the team, you know, I'm sure his shoulder was hurting. He fought through a lot of pain. And it's very frustrating when you have the opportunities, you have the game plan, the coaches do their job, the players put in the work during the week, and then you go out and you beat yourself. It's a very frustrating situation, and I'm sure his attitude echoes that of the team.
Anthony, what has to change in the red zone for this team?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you know, I have to watch the film. I mean, because, you know, every week it's something different. You know, sometimes it's you miss the opportunity that's there. You don't get the right read. You know, sometimes it's not the best play call, and you wish you maybe called something different. You know, just from what I saw on a couple of the red zone opportunities, it seemed like they were trying to take some passes on the outsides. And, you know, those are fine because if you beat the defender and you get in a spot in the end zone and it's a perfect throw, you get yourself the results you want. I also know that's a low probability throw as well. So you're taking a chance on a quarterback being on point, a receiver winning, who, you know, again, you only have one starting receiver that's your, you know, legitimate one in the football game. And then you don't have a lot of work with some of the other guys. You know, trying to maybe utilize the tight end more in the red zone. To me, bigger body guys in the middle of the field as an option. And again, I'd have to watch the film to see if those were opportunities that were there in those circumstances. But those are all you can really ask for in those moments. After that, you have to execute. So if you're 0 for 3, you're clearly not executing at whatever level it may be, whether it's a play call, a route, or someone not getting open. So, again, as I'll look through it and see how it is, but, as of right now, you just have to find a way to do it. Being that you've came into the game with those problems, it's got to be a heightened deal in practice. So it's not like they're not working on it. They're clearly trying to get better at it, but it's just not clicking on those cylinders right now in that area.
Double-edged sword for the Jets tonight because Sam Ficken was perfect. 5 of 5, including a 54-yarder, but the Jets did not score enough in a wild affair at MetLife Stadium. One of the most impressive performers for the team wearing black tonight was wide receiver Jeff Smith, and our own Ethan Greenberg caught up with Smith after this game.
Well, how would you describe the game tonight?
I thought we played pretty well. We just didn't finish some drives, finish in the red zone, score some touchdowns. So we get to watch the film tomorrow, kind of evaluate that and just move on to the next week.
How do you guys go about putting the ball in the end zone? I know that you were activated off of IR earlier this week, like today, but for the past 3 weeks, it's been a consistent story about settling for field goals and not being able to punch the ball in the end zone.
No, I just try to focus on my job, and then I'm sure we will get it figured out soon. Just go watch film tomorrow, see what we didn't hit or what we missed, and then we'll just move on to next week from there.
Jeff, how do you feel like you played tonight? Because this was your second career game, and your first career game got shortened because of an ankle injury, but by all accounts, it seemed like you had a pretty good game out there.
I felt good, being coming off IR. I haven't practiced yet, so I felt pretty good. There's always some things to clean up. So with Coach Sean, Jay, and Hines tomorrow, we'll go through that, and then we'll just move on to next week as well with that.
Jeff, what did you see out of your quarterback Sam Darnold tonight?
He's a great player. He's a leader. And we're just gonna keep following his lead, and yeah, for sure.
Jeff, one last thing for you. What's the mood in the locker room after a game like tonight? And then where do you guys go from here to make sure that no one gets too far down and you guys try to rebound quickly next week with an extended break up ahead?
Well, it's never fun to lose, So just the main focus is to go in tomorrow, watch the film again, just like last year. We were down a lot last year, and then the second half of the season last year we came back and went 6-2, I think, right? So just go back and watch film and just keep pushing.
Awesome, Jeff. Appreciate the time.
For sure, no problem.
Anthony, you're never happy when you lose, but can you take some encouragement out of this performance? You mentioned Jeff Smith before. Jamison Crowder does what Jamison Crowder does. And now hopefully in the next week or so, you're going to get Brashad Perriman back, maybe Denzel Mims, Le'Veon Bell, and all those guys can help this offense take another step.
Honestly, listening to Jeff, it was remarkable the fact that I heard him say, and correct me if I'm wrong, he didn't have a legitimate practice yet coming off of IR.
That's
So
true.
you're talking about a guy that literally was catching balls and walkthroughs, walking through, the scheme for the offense this week on a shortened week, and he came out and looked as crisp as a receiver could look. I got to tell you, it's hard to go through a week and not do anything and go on the football field and actually bring something to the table, especially coming off IR. I'm impressed. I really am. I think he turned some heads today. He won me over as far as a guy that came into the game with one career catch and really no action. 9 targets in the football game, and to catch 7 of those balls. And I'll tell you, a lot of his catches, I didn't see anybody around them. He was getting separation. He looked fast. He looked like he was in the right spots. And Sam threw a couple really nice balls right in the front of his hand so that he could catch and run and utilize some of his speed. So I'll tell you, he may be a nice find moving forward to add him into the mix because, we're searching for guys, right? Cager came up limpy today in the game. Who knows how long he'll be out, and hopefully some guys bounce back with the layoff like you talked about. But I'll tell you, a bright spot for sure for me is Jeff Smith and his performance in this game. Really remarkable.
Well, Anthony, you're always a bright spot for us. We appreciate your analysis as always. We're going to see you next week. Make sure you get some rest during your mini-bye.
I will. I already got about 4 Mountain Dews in tonight, so I may not go to sleep right away after our show, but I promise you I'll get some rest over the next 10 days.
Thanks, buddy. Hey, Eric, where does this team go from here? If you're a player right now, we heard from a number of them tonight. This is a frustrated group, rightfully so. 0-4. They thought they had a great opportunity to get their first win, slipped through their fingertips today, and here you go. You get a couple hours sleep, and maybe they come to the facility and get some treatment. But where do you go from here?
Well, I mean, I think some of the leaders on the team, you watch the film, you go back and see how you assess your performance. And you look back and say, if I hadn't have done this, if we hadn't have done this to ourselves, then we would be in a much better position. And it's going to take the leaders on this team to have everyone take accountability. Everyone has to look themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, what can I do to help this team get better? How can we move forward? Because I think that as little a talent as they have at the receiver position, there's a lot of guys hurt. Le'Veon Bell's not here. I still think they have enough talent to be competitive and win games. But it's going to take the leaders on the team. It's going to take those big-time players to show up, perform well, and not have the self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah, another tough outcome for the New York Jets. They fall to 0-4 on the season with a 37-28 loss to the Denver Broncos at MetLife Stadium. Thanks to Olivia Landis, Ethan Greenberg, Anthony Beckton, and of course, E. Coleman. We're going to be back here next week for another installment of Jets Overtime presented by Duncan. We'll see you next week.